Assalamu alaikum. You are still watching Prime Life. Now, this evening we welcome back Attiyah Ganchi, who is an occupational therapist, and she will be talking to us about a workshop called Growing Through Play at Home, a workshop for parents and for nannies. Now, she will give us tips on how to tailor play activities to your child's development, managing screen time, choosing toys and games, and also setting daily routine as well as parent strategies to balance work and family time. Assalamu alaikum, Atiya. Welcome to Prime Life.
Assalamu alaikum. It's good to be back again.
Welcome back. Now, the title of your workshop called, Growing Through Play at Home suggests that play can be powerful or it can be a powerful tool for supporting children's, overall development. Can you share some of the key principles behind this workshop and also behind this approach to parenting and how these, principles can guide parents in their day-to-day interactions with their children?
Of course, so the word play is such a common word that we learn from a young age, and parents hear it, teachers hear it, everybody knows the word, but what does it actually mean? And particularly when we look at OT, people often say, "Oh, my child goes for OT and all they do is play." But play is such an important fundamental of development. I mean, think back to when, we have newborns. They don't just learn how to wear their clothing, or they don't just learn how to talk. That comes from them, first playing with rattles, learning to grip toys, having tummy time on their play mat, mom babbling to them. And that's how we eventually, as adults, learn to be who we are today. It came from the basis of play because that is one of the most important occupations for kids. And I think in today's time, with how fast life is, kids no longer get to really focus on play. And often, teachers will say words like, "that child is so playful in class." But I mean, what does that mean? Why is that child playful? Is it really a bad thing, or is it just that child's way of developing? So this workshop is really targeted at, firstly, for parents, helping them to understand what their child's play needs are, how to get the maximum value out of play, as well for teachers, and to show them how they can incorporate play into the classroom so that school can, be a place to boost kids' confidence both at home and in the school environment.
That's lovely. Now, could you please provide, examples of different types of play that are beneficial for different age groups and how parents and nannies can at home?
So kids kind of have play develop sequentially, like how they learn to first sit and then crawl and walk, etc., etc. And the same thing for play. So when kids are newborns up to roughly about a year, we get what we call sensory play, and that's where it's very cause and effect. So if you touch them, they'll have a reaction. If you make a sound, they'll turn towards the sound, really engaging their sensory systems to help develop them through play opportunities. And then as they grow up a little bit older, they get introduced to different types of play, like parallel play, where they might just be next to, a sibling at home or someone like that, and they're actually taking in from what is happening next to them. And then they develop onto what we call functional play or imaginary play, and that's where they want to pretend to be mom, or they want to pretend to be teacher, and they really start to explore what they're capable of through this imagination that they're living in. And then after that, kids develop onto constructional play, where they kind of starting to play with blocks, or they starting to draw and color and cut, and they're really starting to create end products, which is what we want. And then the last sort of type of play we get is games with rules, and that we'd see in our kids once they're starting school or even preschool. And that's where they have to learn that they have to follow rules in a game, and that's really fosters their social skills. And I mean, that carries on into the work environment, because as adults, we have to follow rules, and there's boundaries on the road, there's boundaries at home, there's boundaries and rules in the workplace. And that came from us learning how to play games as kids. So that's really incredible to see just how important it is for kids to really, being exposed to different types of play as they grow up.
Hmm. And could you maybe share with us some specific examples of activities that parents can do together with their children to, encourage growth and development?
So I like to say play doesn't need to be fancy. You
Mm,
don't need to be buying your child new toys every weekend. And one of the key components of this workshop is before parents or teachers attend, we like to ask them, what are your kids' interests? And what kind of toys do they have at home? So we can actually teach you how to get maximal value out of this. For example, I'll use the little checkers example in South Africa. I mean, kids, parents as well are enjoying collecting them. But what can you actually do with something like that? So, a simple toy like that, you could hide it in a bag that's non transparent and have kids use their hands and feel, oh, what could this be? That's really developing a lot of those sensory skills, your stereognosis skills that will actually later on help them develop writing and reading skills. Another example is you could take 3 or 4 of those little toys, line them up, show them the kids, okay, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to remember them, take them away. What do you remember seeing? Or if you want to work on some imaginary play, let's pretend, we have a little shop here. I want you to place the Oras bottle on top of the table. I want you to place this under the table. Those spatial relation skills are again going to help them as they enter the academic, demands that they have to face. So simple examples like that, what we have at home, you can really do so much with play by understanding what your child's play needs are.
mm. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, a lot of parents may struggle with, balancing work and also family life while ensuring that their children are engaging in, meaningful play. What advice do you have for such parents who want to also ensure that they're making the best or most of their time with their children?
Of course. So, I mean, in today's time, not every parent has the opportunity for one person to stay at home, and it's on a case by case situation. So, if you are able to stay at home and you choose to stay at home with your kids, there's things you can do with them that way. Or if you are mom or dad that has to go to work, it's a matter of, I think, trying to manage that guilt and not giving into it to the point where it isn't helpful. So a lot of parents who work might think, I feel bad, so now I have to go give my child every toy they want on the weekend. I think it's managing those expectations and actually saying, you know what, let's prioritize together as a family. Maybe instead of every day I cook a fresh meal, I can meal prep on weekends, and then that will give me more time with my child in the week. Or is there someone else that can help out with homework so I can play with my child in the free time? So I think prioritizing is a very big component. But even when you're doing your household chores, include your child in that. Make it playful. I mean, if you're going to use the word chore, no child is going to get excited to do chores. But I mean, if it's you have a child that is, about to start preschool and we say, okay, today let's play where you in charge of the house and, you're going to be the little chef in the kitchen and for 5 minutes you're going to help me, safely chop up something or you're going to help me pack this away. Make them the center of control of the play and include them in the chores. Simple things like making a bed. There's so many gross motor skills that kids can develop from that. And, if you say, today you're going to be the mom, you're going to help us make the bed, things like that, really including them in activities that need to get done anyway, while it might take you a little bit longer, that's still meaningful play with your child.
Hmm. And in our increasingly digital world, screen time is something that could be very hard for parents and for nannies to maintain, especially now that you mentioned that, children need to play. For example, right now they'll be playing games on their phones or tablets, which is a good thing because, like you said, it's part of the growth and development because some of these games are very educational and it helps them. So how do you manage the screen time to make sure that yes, they are engaging on their tablets or games or whatever it is that they're doing, but at the same time you are managing the amount of time they're spending on their screens?
Yes, so I mean, I think we have to all accept that screen time is a part of reality now, and you can't completely cut it out of your child's life because when they go to school, their friends are talking about whatever they're watching on TV, etc. But as a rough guideline, between about 0 to 18 months, we really encourage no screen time, or if it's going to be video calls, that kind of thing, that's okay. But I try to avoid as much screen time with those very young kids. Then from about 18 months to about say 3 years or so, we can say less than an hour a day. And then older than that, we say no more than 2 hours of screen time a day. And I think being intentional in what your kids are doing with screen time is very, very important. So trying to avoid having your kids watch like really with bright colors and flashy quick movements can be very overstimulating for kids, specifically those who are neurodivergent, and those are the kind of shows the kids would tend to prefer. But I mean, it can be quite dangerous. I knew I had a kid who has autism and he's minimally verbal, But whenever we would fetch him for therapy and take away his iPad to try get him to transition, he would actually go on the floor and start screaming, help me, like, subscribe, and follow, because he kind of picks up whatever he hears. So, that's where you got to the point where screen time was almost dangerous for him. But I think there are really ways that you can use it in a good way. So what I often use in therapy is you can get these easy kids drawings, step by step drawings. So we put on a video and get kids to have some paper and pen out, and stop the video along the way and have them practice drawing a picture, because that's still working on their fine motor skills. They feel like they're getting screen time. It's great. Or if they are going to be watching, a little bit of TV, great, let them watch their TV, but afterwards ask them some questions. What did you see on the TV? Work on those memory skills. Try use it in a meaningful way so that it's not them just watching TV and forgetting about it. And I think the time of day that kids get screen time is very important. So you want to avoid it in the morning, because in the morning is where kids are generally most alert. If they had a good night's sleep, that's when you want to get in your academic work or your social work or things like that. More towards the afternoon, that's okay, but even in the evenings, you want to try stay away from screen time, because screens have blue light, and that's actually what affects kids' quality of sleep. So while you might think your child is sleeping through the night, is their sleep quality actually good so that they're rested and able to focus the next day? And what I noticed is, like, a lot of parents would use TV time as a reward. So if you do your homework, then you get TV time. And actually, what research is showing is that that is not always a useful thing, because we want kids to be intrinsically motivated to do activities. It shouldn't just be, I'm doing it for the sake of the reward, because that's not teaching them to be motivated in the right way. So you want to kind of turn that around, and because if you're going to keep telling them the reward is going to be screen time, that kind of puts a lot of stress on anxiety of them. I have to get my homework right perfectly, and it's that unnecessary stress that they don't need, that later carries on into other aspects. Or the reward that they need would be longer. Eventually they're going to say, I want 2 hours of screen time, or I want more because I had to do more homework as they grow up. So you want to stop making TV the reward and using it when you need it. And I mean, I understand that often when you go out in public, you'll see parents will take their kids' iPads out, because that's the only way they can manage their child's meltdowns, because they're afraid of, if my child's going to be screaming on the floor for their iPad, we don't want people looking at us. And I think us as society need to understand that some kids, particularly our kids with autism, who might have those meltdowns, it's not because parents are being bad parents and they can't control their kids. It's that's their child's sensory response, and you need to give that child the space that they need, so that parents aren't forced to have to just use tools like iPads to calm their kids down in public.
Mm. And how can parents ensure that their kids are getting enough downtime for unstructured play and relaxation without also overscheduling their lives?
So yeah, I think if we look back to the definition of play, play is something that is intrinsically motivated by the child, is chosen by the child, and it gives them a suspension of reality. So when you say, okay, my child is playing, is it something that they're actually enjoying playing? I mean, your child could be enrolled in soccer, soccer, cricket, everything one day of the week. And if they're enjoying it and that's motivating them and that's how they're making friends and they're thriving with that, that's fine. That's okay. But if you're forcing your child every day to go to a sport or an extramural that they're not enjoying, I'm not saying just let them give it up altogether, but if it's something that's causing more harm than good, then that's not actually meaningful play. If your child is happier, at home playing with boxes, making their own imaginary creatures up, that's fine. If that's their way of playing, that's okay. Just make sure that what your child is doing is actually meaningful and something that they are able to grow, and we're using play as a way to boost their confidence. And I mean, don't get me wrong, extramurals have great benefits. If we look at sports like horse riding, that actually could help kids with their walking development. It helps to manage their emotions. So it's about finding the balance on what is actually working for your child, and that's why we're having workshops like this to help really understand what your child's play needs are.
Mm. Now, Adia, as we wrap up our conversation, for parents who are interested in attending the workshop, what are the costs, when, and um, where is it happening?
So we're hosting this on the 2nd of August with my partner. She's also an OT, Samia RB, and it is in Johannesburg, in Risserveld Parkside, and it's at 2 o'clock, and we really want it to be as interactive, where you can share ideas with other like-minded parents. Before time, we'll also be asking you some information on your child so we can make sure that it is as tailored as possible towards you. And we really want it to just be a community network space where parents can, understand what their common struggles are, and we can find solutions to make sure that you're able to give the best that we know you want to give your child.
Mm.
And the cost is 250 Rand, just for that one session. But if you attend our session at 12 o'clock before that called, I think my child has a problem now, what? Then you can get both sessions for 400 Rand.
Mm. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for providing us with very educational, information in terms of how parents can navigate their lives around children, but most importantly, how they can make the most out of their children's growth and development. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on again.
Thank you. Viewers at home, that was Attiyah Ganchi who was just talking to us about, the workshop that's coming up, which is called Growing Through Play at Home. And this is a conversation that I think was very insightful and very educational for parents, for nannies, for people that are around children all the time. And you want to be the best version of yourselves around your children, but most importantly, making sure that your children are also, enjoying the growth and the development that you are providing for them. But without wasting any time, let's go to a quick break. We'll see you right after this.